So first of all, thank you for attending. My name is Rui Romano. I'm a data fellow from Portugal. Working with data for 15 years now. I'm very passionate about Power BI, very passionate about everything related to data. I'm a Microsoft Data Platform MVP. And I work at Descope, where I do mostly consulting, but we also develop some great products. By the way, stick to the end. I will offer 5 licenses of our top product, just a giveaway. So the first 5 people to redeem a code will earn it. Everything that I will show you, these are my contacts, so you can follow me on Twitter or just send me an email, and everything that I will show you, I will share with you. Just drop me an email, and I will be glad to to share that with you. So the session today is called Power BI Monitoring 101. First of all, a disclaimer: it's not a Power BI introduction. So I'm assuming that you already know what is Power BI, and we will talk about monitoring and specifically why you need to do monitoring. So in my opinion, it's one of the main pillars of a good Power BI governance. Then I will do a demo of what you can do with this data, how important it is. And in the end, I will briefly, because we won't have too much time to go in details, but I will show you how you can do it. How you can collect this data and how you can work with the data. But please focus mostly on the possibilities, not the how to do it. So one more time, I will do it with some PowerShell scripts, and I will share the entire code and the Power BI template with you. So don't worry about the how, worry about the possibilities and why this is important for you to do. So, monitoring, and when I talk about this, mainly with people that are in a way responsible for administering or governing a Power BI tenant or a Power BI developer, I always ask these questions. And if you cannot answer them, then you should really start worrying about monitoring your tenant. So first question is, what's your most active user in the Power BI tenant? Why this is important? So or the most active users, not a single person. This is very important because if you want to, let's say, release a new feature, if you want to enable a new feature that was released in the last month in Power BI, or you just want to get feedback, it's important to know who are the most active users inside the organization. Another important question is how many distinct users you have per month, per day, and per hour. And why this is important to know? It's very important, especially if you are using Power BI Premium. If you are buying the capacity, that capacity will get stressed out in one of the biggest aspects that can influence or can stress your capacity is the amount of distinct users that are actively using your tenant per hour, for example. This is also very important because you can have let's say 1,000 users in your entire company, but you only have, in a monthly basis, only 100 of them access Power BI. It could be a situation of a school, for example, that you have specific teachers that only came in 1 month in separate months or separate periods, and this can influence your licensing. So this can influence the way that the next license, your licensing strategy for the next months. Then how is content being shared inside the company? So you define a strategy for Power BI to distribute your Power BI content through workspaces, apps, or even published web. And it's also important for you as a Power BI administrator to monitor how is this content being shared. Then another very important question: do your end users use personal workspaces, what do exist inside those personal workspaces? For example, is the most active report or the most used report inside the personal workspace? I've seen this happen in a big company. One of the top 3 reports inside the company was actually inside a personal workspace, and no one knew about it. Only the person that created that report, and they shared between all the users that a specific report, and it was on a personal workspace. And this is a very, very bad practice. Then which reports are actually being used by everyone? So you are as a Power BI, I mean, you should know about this. Because if I ask you, or if I ask the Power BI developer, what is the report that is the most important report in the company, the report that cannot fail, maybe he will tell me that it's the report that gave them more effort. And that's not entirely true, or it could not be true. So it's very important also to get this data to monitor the actual reports that are the most important ones in your company. Then, where are your users accessing Power BI from? Do they use the browser? Which browser? Is it Firefox? Is it Chrome? Is it Edge? And this is also important because I had a situation a while ago where Firefox was the culprit for a performance issue with Power BI. And it's important because if you are getting complaints from your end users about performance of Power BI, maybe it's because of the browser. So it's important to know which browser are they using. Do they use mobile applications? And this is also important because you might be spending time and effort designing mobile views for your reports and no one using it is using mobile. And also it's also important because if you want to, maybe you should promote this mobile application to your end users and tell them that the mobile application exists and they should know about it and use it. And you can collect the monitoring data just to know if they are using mobile or not, and which reports do they use mobile. And also Excel. So you might have a strategy to, I won't say force, because I really believe that's a lost war to force to kill Excel. So I think that Excel will never die, but it's you should know if there might be reports that your end users still use Excel and they might be better served with Power BI. So it's also important to know which users use Excel the most and from which data sets. Then also another very important thing about monitoring and governance is the data sources. Which data sources are used inside your Power BI tenant? So when the Power BI developers create data sets and Power BI reports, they connect to a ton of data sources: file system, OneDrive, SQL Server, Oracle, whatever. And you can collect all these data sources and catalog them and know exactly how many data sets you have connecting to OneDrive or to file system or to a SQL Server. For example, I have a customer that didn't want anyone to connect data sets to the file system, to the local laptop file system. They want to always force the connection through OneDrive. So every time they detect this, every time they detect there is a file from the file system to the local file system and not from OneDrive, they go and talk to the Power BI developer or the end user that created the data set and force them to move to OneDrive. And of course, data set refreshing. So looking at the trends and the averages and the duration average, the errors of the data set refresh. And also, it's very important to know which reports are actually not being used. And why this is important? This is very important because you might be supporting and spending some money on the support, money and time in support data sets and reports that no one uses. If no one is using for more than a year, maybe it's time to just deprecate those reports. And last but not least, licensing, because you can get from Power BI the usage by user. So you get all the activity for all the users inside your company. And you can cross this data with the licensing. So if you have a list of users with all the licenses for each user, and then you have the usage, you can instantly answer a question, okay, how many users that don't even do a login to Power BI, and I'm spending a license with them? Maybe. And I have other 50 users asking for licenses, and then I'm not giving them because I already spend all my licenses. But I have users that don't actually use Power BI. So I can just remove a license from them and assign to the other user, because a license in Power BI is just a seat. And today I'm seated and I have a Power BI license, and tomorrow I don't. So I always start by asking these questions because I really think it's really important for any Power BI admin to know. And if you cannot answer those questions, then I can tell you that you are driving blind, and there is literally a big reality check ahead of you. So, of course, if you have a small tenant, then maybe you already know everything. If you have a tenant with 1, 2, 3 users, but if you have a small to medium to large tenant with hundreds of thousands of users, then I can tell you, if you don't look at this data, if you don't collect the monitoring data, a big reality check is ahead of you. So the goal of this session is simple, is to motivate you to look at this. I really believe that it's really important to do the BI of the BI. If you have a business intelligence project, it's also important to do the BI of that business intelligence project, because this will allow you to make better decisions, to prioritize better the reports that you should be paying more attention to, the users that really deserve your attention as a Power BI developer or a Power BI administrator. So and that's it. So that's my only goal for today. So if some of you don't do this, and you in a way you can do it, or you can tell your company to do it, that's my goal for today. So even if you don't do anything, because what I'm going to show you is not the out of the box way, so you need to, I won't say you need to write some code, because I already write that code for you. But there are some things that are available out of the box that you don't need to do anything. So you just need to use the feature. So the first one, and it's very useful, is if you go to a Power BI report, you have this option that is Open Usage Metrics that you can click. And when you click on this button, this will open a report for you that will show for the last 7 days the report activity for the workspace. And these are two limitations for me. So first, it's workspace level. So you'd only get the views and the page views of the entire workspace, but you don't get from the entire tenant. So if you want to get this for the entire tenant, you need to create this report for each workspace that you manage. But it's good enough. If you only have 1 or 2 or 3 workspaces, it could be good enough. The only problem that I see that I have with this is it's only 7 days. So you cannot go back then 7 days. And it's, in my opinion, it's important to go back then 7 days, because if you look at a year worth of data, then you have a lot of patterns in there. You have seasonality patterns, for example. But there is something here that I cannot give you, or the custom solution that I will show you, I don't have, is telemetry data. So I only have data up to the report level, not to the page level. So this Power BI report usage, it shows you, for example, the time to open a page, or which page report pages your users are seeing. So I don't have that data, unfortunately. It's not available on the APIs. Then, at an admin level, you actually have a monitoring solution. So if you are a Power BI admin, you can go to this usage metrics on the admin portal, And this will give you some counters. It will give you some the activity by end users, but you don't have any kind of interactivity, and you don't have any way to control the refresh of this data. I actually I don't know when this refresh, if it's daily, if it's I know that it's not actually real time. It takes a while to update. And you don't have any kind of interactivity. So it just shows you the counters, shows you some charts, and that's it. Okay. Neither of which, in my opinion, it's good enough, or it's good enough for a good Power BI tenant broader monitoring solution. But if you don't have any other, then this is at least what you can or you should look at. So let's go to a vendor, and I will show you my report. The report, one more time, I will share with you in the end. Just send me an email, and I will gladly share this with you. So this is a Power BI report. I call it the Power BI monitoring, and let's start by looking at the activity. So the first page is just looking at the entire activity for a Power BI tenant since November last year. So I have a lot of data in here. So I have almost 7-8 months of data. And I can see, I can have a slicer, of course, that I can reduce the time frame or increase. And I can see a lot of things in here. So the first thing is I have a KPI that just tells me if the activity trend, so if the Power BI adoption is raising, and I can see that. So I can see that in this chart over here. Let me just zoom it. I can see that the actual Power BI trend, the activity is increasing. Another thing that I can see is that since November last year, I have 116 distinct users. So 116 Power BI users logged in and done any kind of operation. It could be a view report, it could be an admin operation, it could be just a sign-in. But per day, I only have 19. So if I'm a Power BI admin and I'm negotiating license for my company, I won't probably need 116. So I would say that 25 licenses will be enough, because since November last year, I never add in a single day. The average in a single day of Power BI users is 19. It's not, but my company, I have 116 users. So distinct users is really important. I also have distinct users per hour. So and by the hour, this is even worse. So on the peak hours from 9 to 14, on average, I never had more than 6. And on maximum, so this line over here show me the max. So on maximum, at 9 a.m., only 15. So the number of users and the number of distinct users is really important. Now, I can also see the distinct users per month. So per month, it's a little bit different. So this KPI in red over here, I can see that, for example, in February, 66 distinct users access Power BI. I have an increase in March, and then an increase in April, and then a decrease in May. So if I'm going to, I told you that, and I'm sorry, so per day only 19, but per month the average it's, I will say 70. So maybe the amount of licenses, if I bought 25 licenses, it will be low. If I want to be sure, then I will need like 70. That is different, or 75. That is different than the 116. But I can also be smart about my licensing. So I can even have some, because I know that each day I only get 19. So I can have a script that assign and remove live Power BI licenses if I want. Okay, but I only want to I'm talking too much about distinct users because this is also something that I see it's really important just to know the amount of users that you have accessing your Power BI tenant every day and every hour, especially when we are talking about premium and Azure Analysis Services databases. This is very important to know. So this chart over here already talked about the distinct users. I can see the trend in distinct users. I can also see the activity per month. I grouped all the activities. So a Power BI activity, and I can show you that. So what we get from the audit logs, from the activity API, it's some records like this. So I have the timestamp, the user, the item it was related to the operation type. It should be here. So I get the operation, the workspace, the data set, the client IP, the user agent. So this is the data that I get. So what I do in this Power BI report is I somehow transform this data. For example, one of the things that I do is I group the operations into operation groups. So, and why I do that? Because if I want to look at authoring, for example, and authoring is all the operations that somehow has any kind of creation involved. So a creation of the report, deletion, and edit from the report. And authoring is something as a Power BI governance is really, really important for you to monitor, because if you are trying to make your users to use more Power BI, to create reports in Power BI, if you have any self-service strategy, authoring is what you need to look at. So, for example, in my company, the authoring was decreasing. So, for example, data views, so the Power BI viewing, the view of reports, so the data view operations is increasing. So we have in the company more and more users accessing Power BI and using Power BI to read reports, but from the self-service strategy, it's decreasing. So we have less and less users creating reports, editing reports. Maybe because the reports are so good that they don't need to do anything about it, but we are getting less people actually doing the authoring. So I can also look at the export operations. So export operations is operations that somehow has an export. So export to Excel, export through the APIs. I can click the user and I can see which reports is doing the operation. I can even do a drill through and see exactly. So a drill through kept all my filters. Now I can see the operations. So download reports, export reports, which report, which time, which agent. I can see which IP address that operation was done. If I somehow want to export this data and send it to someone through an auditing process, for example, I can do it. Now, so this report over here show me the monthly trends. Of course, this is Power BI, so I can drill to the daily level. I can drill up to the monthly level. I can drill up to yearly level. So we get all those features. Another thing that I really like about Power BI is this auto machine learning feature. So I have a line chart here that just show me logs by day, and I'm using the anomaly detection that I just want to, because we have an activity. It's just we have all those logs by day, so I can do easily some anomaly detection. So if there is a log or a specific point in time where the logs is way different than the expected value. So for example, Power BI was expecting a log of 577 logs, and it got 2,000. So this is an anomaly, and I can click on the anomaly and try to learn more about it. So, and to do something like this is very easy. We need to have a line chart and use the analysis tab and enable define anomalies. And we can tune the sensitivity level if we want. So, and this is out of the box, and we don't need to do anything, nothing fancy here. Other thing, so below, this is categorizing data by the users, by the workspaces, by the apps, Power BI apps, and the data sets. And I can click, for example, on a user, and I can see which workspace that user uses the most, which apps, which data sets is using the most. I can click on a workspace and see the other way around. Okay, this workspace is only used by these two users, this one by these two users, and this workspace has these data sets. And I can see instantly for a specific workspace, or let's go to an app, for a specific Power BI application, what's the trend usage and the distinct counts of users that actually use this app? Which users use this app? Are they coming from mobile? Are they coming from the browser? So for example, this Power BI application over here, it has a mobile view for each report, but I'm the only one, or I'm almost the only one that uses mobile application. So as a developer of these reports, I might do two things. So first is I can stop doing the mobile view, because if you are a Power BI developer, you know that you need to spend some time designing the mobile view. Or I can talk to these users that are using my Power BI application, and I can teach them. I can say, hey, do you know that there is a mobile application? It makes your life really easy. Just use it. But for example, this one, the manager cockpit, this one has a lot of users using the mobile application. And even better, it has a very special user at ESCO. It's our CEO. So the CEO only uses mobile. So mobile application for this Power BI application, it's really important. Actually, we get like, I even have a stack percentage bar chart over here. I know that mobile and it's almost 50% of the usage. And in my entire tenant, but in the entire tenant, we actually have a small percentage of mobile usage. So we're only 6%. But this is also not honest, because we should look at the mobile view only in the data views. So data views is actually report viewing, because when you are authoring, you are not going for sure to be using the mobile. Okay. So I'm sure that I missed something here around the activity. I also like to use this visualization. So this visualization is just plotting the amount of users on the X and the amount of logs on the Y, and I'm correlating the two. So we see that, of course, that view reports has 106 users, and it has a lot of logs. But for example, this one over here, it has 6 users and 13 logs, 13,000 logs. So this is very good to find some outliers over here. So I also like to look at this visualization, and for example, click on a specific month and just see that the operations for that specific month. Okay. Okay, very well. Now, next, also on the activity, I have a report page that just looks at the report activity. So this is not activity for the whole tenant, all kinds of the activities, because an activity could be not only a report view, it can be a Excel analysis, can be an export operation, can be a generate token. So you have all the activities, share report or share dashboard. So in here, I'm focusing only on reports. So I don't care about all the other activities. And I can instantly answer that all my accesses are through the browser, not mobile. The report with the most activity, it actually has a trend KPI. And I can see that this report over here, it has a positive trend. So it's growing, the adoption of this report. These are the users that use it the most. So this only it's the same thing that the previous report page, but it's only focused on the report activity. So, and this is the first part of the report. The second part of the report, we are going to look at catalog. So we are not looking at the activity, we are looking into what do exists inside my Power BI tenant. So how many workspaces with Power BI content, how many dashboards, how many reports, how many data sets. So I can even see, for example, group workspaces that are group this is Gen 1. So I need to actually come here and migrate and upgrade this to a Gen 2 workspace. I can see what do exist in the personal workspaces. And I can see that Emmanuel over here, it has a lot of content in there in his personal space. And I can drill through and even go to a page that will get me all the detail. What's the content inside Emmanuel workspace? Which data sets, what type of the data set, what type of storage, if it's using the large storage model or the default one, the reports, the last time of the modification of those reports. So we can get all this data through the catalog data, the apps. So this is something that is very, very new. It was released, I believe, last week. You can get also now the Power BI application as an admin. So I see that I'm the Power BI publisher with the most apps published. I can click on my apps and see which apps and what's the name of those apps, which report, how many reports each app Power BI app has. So this report is just to look at the catalog. Then another thing that this is actually, I'm showing you, and I asked permission from Microsoft to show you. So this is still in private review. It's going to be released really soon. It's regarding also, you can also get through the APIs, the Power BI catalog APIs, you can get the schema of your data sets. And why this is important? This is very, very important because you can, in a way, get all for all the data sets that exist in your tenant, you can get all the tables that exist inside each data set. And for each table, you can get the data type, the columns of the table, the measures of the table. And you can, in a way, because I'm also a very lazy guy, so I don't like to actually write those extensive documentations. And with this is the first step for an auto documentation, because I can come here and I can see, okay, I have this data set, Power BI scorecard. It has a table called measures. It has this measure. This is the description of the measure, because you can, in Power BI, when you create a measure, you can write some descriptions into the columns and into the measures. I can click on a measure. I can see the DAX code of that measure. I can also click on a table, and I can see, for example, this table. I can see the type of the column, the columns of each table. So this is very good for that type of self-documentation of your Power BI datasets. And also, you also get this search. So I can search for sales and find on all the data models that I have, any artifact that has sales in the text. If it's a sales in the name of the measure, if it's a sales on the actual DAX of this measure. And just looking at the DAX, though, this might seem too technical for some end users, than it is, because you might have some DAX code in here that are pretty complex. But some of them, so DAX, it's a language that, especially those simple DAX statements, it's also good for the end user to know and to understand the actual logic of the calculation behind the scenes. Okay, so I think that this is really important. This is a very, very good step from Microsoft to allow us as the Power BI admins to get this data from the entire tenant. Then talking about data sets. So this is something that you also get from the catalog. So for each data set, you can get the data sources that the data set connects to. So, and I can see that, for example, in our tenant, the mostly used data source in the entire tenant is file. And I can click on the file. I can see which workspaces, which data sets has a file connection, what are the file of that workspace connection, and all the details. So, and this is also important. For example, I worked with a big customer where Power BI wasn't actually, and it isn't today, the main Power BI, the BI application. It was MicroStrategy, but we realized as an admin level that a lot of, especially end users and power users, they were creating data sets, Power BI data sets, publishing to my workspace, and almost all the files were files named export from MicroStrategy something. Okay, and this is also important for you to be aware that, okay, if people are using a BI application just to export and build another BI application inside that export, then maybe there are better ways to do it. And of course, you can click on SQL and see which SQL servers are you connecting to, which databases. I can even use a search. I can search for CRM and see which connections or data sources with CRM in the connection string do exist. And so just looking at the data sources is also something really, really important. Now, because we are also talking about data sources, actually, I don't know what's happening. Sorry about that, but I think I have some, I don't know what's happening, but I will move forward. But this is, let me see if I have a screenshot over here. No, I don't. I don't know what's happening, but basically you can also get through the APIs all the data refreshes from your Power BI data sets, and you can look at this data as like the trend of each data set, the average duration for each data set. I would really love to show you, but I don't know what's happening. I think that I broke some data here. So the error, so you can get like the big picture from all your data sets. You can get a big 10,000 high view of what's happening in all the refreshes of all data sets. So you can, one of the things that I really like to look at is if you have a Power BI data set that is an important data set, and that the refresh duration has a lot of spikes. So sometimes it takes 1 minute, and then the next refresh takes 5 minutes, and then the next refresh takes 2 minutes. Then it could be a situation on the data source, or if you want to have a better reliability, maybe it's a good approach is to look into Power BI Premium that will get you that reliability of the refresh. Now, other thing is users, so and membership. So for each workspace, you have this membership configuration where you can invite or add users, apps, and groups. And it's also very nice to just look at all the workspaces, what type of configuration and which users belong, or which groups, or which Power BI service or Azure Active Directory service principals are configured in the workspace. And you can also look at it as an entire tenant overview. So I can see that, for example, in our tenant, this is normal, but in a normal tenant, it's not normal to have a lot of admins configuration. So this should be, the bigger one should be viewers and members, because admins, in our tenant, it's normal because we do consulting. So we have a lot of times we have some Power BI reports from customers and demos. So we are normally all the time the admin. But it's also important to look at this just to see how are you assigning the permissions for all your workspaces. And licensing. So this report over here, you can, I'm relating licensing and usage, and I can see, for example, if I click on the users without Power BI activity and with a Power BI license, and I can see instantly that I have 36 users that I'm spending a license with them, and they don't even do a login since November last year. So no kind of access. So all these users, they don't have any logs. So I can decide, okay, I will just remove the license from these users and I will assign to another one, to another user that will maybe that is needing this license, and I'm not giving them because I think that's the reality check that we sometimes get with this. I think that they are using, but they are not. Okay, and in our case, it's a small number, but I've seen this number goes to hundreds in some big companies. They are buying those licenses. They also have premium, but they bought the license because each department wanted to have a collection of users to create reports. And that's also why it's important to monitoring the authoring and to see if your self-service strategy is getting some adoption or not. And this can mean a lot of money. So be aware of it. And last, but also very important, just the no activity. So I have a slicer over here and I can select, let's say, no activity in the last 150 days. And I can see that I have a lot of workspaces over here with no activity at all in more than 197 days. So this is also important to look at the deprecation. So if you want to just deprecate a report, or if you want to stop supporting the report, it's also important to know the last activity of that report. And this can get you a list of everything that wasn't used in more than 150 days. Okay, so this is the report. So I shown all the pages of this report. This is what you can do with the monitoring and the catalog data. And now, and because I only have Craig, how many time do I have?
You should be done really soon. We have 10 more minutes before the next session. We have a question in the chat as well.
Okay, so let's do it. Can I have like two minutes just to explain the solution?
Okay, absolutely.
So the most important part is actually showing you what you can do. So possibilities. Now, what I can share with you is the solution to get this data. So we are using as data sources APIs from Power BI. So Power BI has an API catalog. We are using two APIs, the metadata async APIs and the activity API. Activity API. One thing that is important to know is you can only go back 30 days with this API. So what this means is if you are not collecting this data today, you are losing data every day. So start collecting this data because you might need that data and you might need that information later. So we are using these two APIs. We are also using the Graph API to get the users' names, the display name for each user, and also the licenses. But this is optional. So if you don't have the permissions and if you don't have a way to connect to a Graph API, you can skip that, and the Power BI report will work the same. And then we have 4 PowerShell scripts. So we have one PowerShell script to get the catalog and the metadata. We have one PowerShell script to get the activity. And we also have one PowerShell script to get the dataset refresh that somehow is failing because the report is not working. Then I store the data in a folder, in a file system. So something like this. So in the end, after the script runs, you'll get a folder like this. So the activity data, the catalog data, the graph data, and also the datasets data. And for the activity, I have one folder for each year and then one file for each day of activity. So, and the PowerShell scripts, it's not the best solution. It's the simplest solution that I know that I can share with you, and you can start running this today or tomorrow, okay? It has a configuration file where you need to specify the credentials to access the Power BI tenant, and it will also save the last time it ran, because all the scripts, if you run each day, they will be smart enough to start by the previous execution. So the activity, if you run today, if you run tomorrow, it will start since the last time it ran, okay? But if you ask me, is this the best solution? No, the best architecture. So the best architecture, I would say that you can build this in Azure, for example, using Azure Functions or Logic Apps. You can store the data in a blob storage instead of a file system. And this will be way more resilient. But this was more difficult for me to share something working with you. And also, to be honest, I'm way more comfortable in doing this stuff in PowerShell than doing in Azure Function way. But for example, in my customers, I always go this way. I have an Azure function. It's implemented in .NET to do it, but it has a lot more complexity in it. There is also a series of blog posts by Just that you can follow to the exact same thing, but using Azure Data Factory. So if you are more comfortable in doing something like this in Azure Data Factory, I will suggest looking into Just blogs. Then all the other slides. So I ran out of time, but all the other slides basically is just a step-by-step. How do you create the credentials to access the Power BI tenant? Then it goes a brief explanation about the scripts, and also a brief explanation about the Power Query and the modeling. But to be honest, this is very self-explanatory. If I share the code with you, and if you have in the company, or if you have any PowerShell skills, you will of course understand it. But one more time, the most important thing about this presentation and the most important message is, if you are not doing this in your company, start doing it. Start collecting the data, because that's the most important part of it. And one more time, just send me an email and I will share the code with you. So Craig, maybe we can look into the questions. And sorry, but I got in late, like 15 minutes, and I think that we don't have more time. Craig, can you? I cannot see the questions, I believe.
Mike here. There is one question. I'm going to give you the question, and I'm going to have to drop out to another to do my session, actually. Okay. There's one question from Pranan saying that can similar stats be generated for all data flows within the tenant too? And someone's asking if you can share your email as well.
Yeah, I will share the email in a minute. About data flows, there, as far as I know, there is no stats on data flows at the admin level. You maybe have some stats on the refresh for the data flows. But from what I know, data flows and admin APIs to get all the data flows that exist in the tenant, from at least on the async APIs, it doesn't exist. About my email, so these are my contacts. You can drop me an email to rui.romano@scope.net. You can also find me on LinkedIn and Twitter. Just drop me a message. Don't forget to evaluate the speaker,